Okay, why do we need API? There are different reasons. Some of them are here. The current state and future of API. Sorry, the next one. APIs can help with your business strategy. Sharing data with other companies through API, as you have seen that due to this API, we have the advantage of different communication of between different services. Okay, sharing data with other companies through APIs creates synergy between your company and others, which you wouldn't have if you were keeping all of your data for yourself. For example, if I have to import data from some other company, from a company that's outside, that is international company. For this, I have to share my data, and that is can only be done by the API. Okay, if I don't use API, then it means I have just keep my data to myself only. APIs are helpful because they allow you to make your data public so that anyone can use your company's software and analyze the data in order to get insight or develop solutions that would not have been possible without the API. By using an API, you can avoid creating systems of redundancies while also creating a variety of opportunities for different users who want to work with your company's services. Okay. The second reason is why we need APIs because it's assisted. It provide assistance in management of data. How it's provide? Let's check. Basically, many businesses need a lot of data in order to make decisions. Although data is more important part of any company, any organization, okay, but not every company has the time or resource to collect all its this data that is required for it. That's where the APIs can help. So APIs can also help in this you can say in this part. An API allows you to collect data without expending time or effort. Okay, this is especially true if the API is designed for a specific type of data. For instance, if you are trying to collect information about customers, customer of a specific platform or a specific domain, then an API that collect customer information would be beneficial for your business. Okay. In addition, API can be used when it is necessary to process and analyze large amount of data that are too complex for human alone to comprehend. APIs can also help in understanding of that data, in an analysis of that data. An API is set of routines, protocols, and tools that programmers use when they build an application to communicate with another application in the network. API can provide a variety of functions and services that can be used by anyone. Okay, API management allow for the enterprise-wide management of access, security, and release processes for APIs across various channels, including digital properties or the third-party developers. Okay, the next one is why we need APIs, because API promote business growth. How API enable data integration across multiple platforms. As you have seen that API allow us to do the communication between different services. So different platforms are available for different services. API enable us data integration. To integrate data across multiple platforms. Integration means you can say compile them. Okay, integrate them. APIs make data accessible. For it, accessibility of data is easy. APIs help make sure your product or service is seamless from start to finish. Okay, here is another thing, API testing and why it's needed. What are the criteria that are that will be checked during its testing? Okay, let's check one by one. API basically application programming interface testing is a type of software testing. We have seen that testing types in the SDLC cycle. Okay, in API testing is a type of software testing that focus on verifying the functionality of its API performance, how it's performing, security, how it's secure, how our data is secure, it's not misused by someone, it is secured or not, and reliability of APIs. API testing involves sending requests to servers, as I have told you in the start, that basically here the client server module works. Network works just like the someone request from the server, and the server sent back a response to the client. For example, as on by using your search engine, somehow you have request something, that request is gone to your ISP, internet service provider, and for you it's a server, it will send back your request response according to your request. Anyhow, API testing involves sending requests to the server, analyzing responses, and verifying whether they meet the expected outcomes or not. It also includes testing for security vulnerabilities, performance issues, and potential bugs. Basically, bugs in the computer language is an error that occur. After finding the bugs, there will be debugging. That's another thing. Here is just testing includes security vulnerabilities, performance issues, and potential bugs. Okay, let's check one by one here the things that are mentioned, that are functionalities, performance, security, and reliability. API evaluation, there is a API evaluation criteria available. So in the evaluation criteria, the first feature we will check it is security. API security is basically the process of protecting APIs from attacks. There are different attacks that can be done on the API. Okay, because APIs are most very commonly used, and because they enable processes, they enable access. Sorry, APIs are very commonly used, and because they, as you have seen, that how commonly APIs are used nowadays for from food ordering to anything else. APIs are very commonly used, and because they enable access to sensitive software functions and data, they are becoming a primary target for attackers, because data is available for everyone who wants to use it. As you have seen, it's also help in data management. So we have to secure that data as well. API security is a key component of modern web application security. API may have vulnerabilities like broken authentication and authorization. Someone broke this feature, both of these, and any one of these, then get into the system. Lack of the rate limiting and code injection. These are the different things that can be done for penetrating into the system. Organization must regularly test API, so it will help them to identify vulnerabilities and address these vulnerabilities using security best practices. Okay, API evaluation criteria. The second thing is usability. Usability has the same meaning whether you are referring to the end user. Basically, end users are us who are using the applications. Referring to the end user application with graphical user interface or developer code with an API. Graphical user interface, which is also known as GUI. Our Windows provide us graphical user interface. Graphically means all the interfaces that can be and that allow us graphics for interaction. For example, here if we are using the Windows operating system, there are different icons available, there are different graphics available for interaction. So graphical usability has the same meaning whether you are referring to the end user application with graphical user interface or developer code with an API. Or if you are not using graphical user interface, then there will be a developer code that is with an API. Usability refers to how easy it is for users to accomplish their desired task with the tool. To evaluate usability, you must first understand what tasks user want to perform from the API. As you have seen that there are different tasks that API can done in the previous slides. So it's according to the requirement or need of the user, from that what it actually wants from the API to done. Since the API users guide that technical writers cover these tasks in detail, technical writers are perfectly suitable to provide feedback on an API's usability. So the next thing is functionality. It aims to verify that an application's features and functionalities completely match its specified requirements and do what they should. It's actually, if I have used an API for data management, then it should and it must help the user or the person or the developer in the data management. In functional testing, we enter specific data, okay, and analyze the output and then compare the expected result with the actual one to verify that an application perform as intended. Basically, different test in testing, different test there are different type of testing available as well. There are black box testing, white box testing, and gray box testing. So this approach is basically done in the black box testing. Here different test cases are generated, and that test cases in which the expected result is, in which actual result is known. So if we input our data and that result is generated, basically that output is generated, and we then compare the expected outcome to the actual outcome and verify that an application perform as intended or not, and basically what it's actually intended to do, it's doing or not. Okay, as you have seen both of these protocols in the previous slides, that are SOAP versus REST, that were introduced in the 2000, at least 2000. SOAP basically works on a standard set of rules based on XML. As I have told you that XML is a programming language, that is extensible markup language. Here, different tags, user can define his or her own tags, whereas in different programming languages there are built-in tags, there are by default tags available. User just use them by using the library, by using the header file of the libraries. Okay, otherwise, REST support many formats, whereas SOAP support only XML or HTTP, whereas REST support JSON, XML, etc., and doesn't apply any additional messaging layer. Here you can see that REST and SOAP, REST you supports social media, web chat, and mobile, whereas SOAP supports financial, telecommunication, and payment gateways. Same thing is shown in this by using different platforms available, just like REST. You have seen that in the previous slide that REST is used for the web chat or social media. Here, just different applications for those previous slides, according to the previous slides, are shown. Just like REST, in REST, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Stripe are can be easily done by using the REST, whereas in SOAP protocol, different eBay, SAG, and different other applications are used. Okay, SOAP is basically simple object access protocol for exchanging the structured information on a decentralized. I have already told you that SOAP is basically used for exchanging structured information, and structured information that is in a specific format. As I've told you that if the data is available in the tabular format, then it means our data is in a structured format. And there is another thing that is a new term that you have seen is decentralized. There are two concepts that are centralized and decentralized. Centralized mean that something that is on the same in the same you can say at the same place, but decentralized is opposite of the centralized. And distributed platform using XML. Again, XML is extensible markup languages. Here you can see that, as I've told you in the start, that there is basically the work that basically it works on the client server module. Client request to the server and server send back response according to the request. HTTP hypertext transfer protocol, basically it receives request and send responses. You have here the SOAP is used, reference the WSDL file, and again perform the operations the API supports, or it backs again, and at the end the person who requests will get a response. Here is basically the XML format. It's just like this. Let me. Here we have seen that there are different methods that are post, put, get. Here is the post method. Again, You have host name, host proper link, and content type, which type of content you are using, application, SOAP plus XML, charts at UTF-8, and content length is given. Here is basically all the XML. There is opening tag and there is closing tag. Opening tag, it can be used like this, angular brackets and then question mark, and XML version, which type of version you are using, and then SOAP, basically protocol, and that here is an envelope, and XML and a SOAP. This is basically a proper, you can say this will, if you are using SOAP protocol, then you have to use this code as it, use this opening tag as it is. Okay, there will be a header and body. That was a header, and now there's a body which tells us about that. So body has tag which name is get stock price, and in that get stock price there is again the stock name given, whose name is IBM, and that stock name has opening tag and ending tag. Okay, that is in the XML. Basically there are opening and closing tags are available, and these tags were defined according to the requirement of the user. As you can see that if I'm working on the some stock market, then I'll use the get stock price tag and stock name. That tags are defined according to the requirement. Okay, simple. That was a request, and here is the response. That is again HTTP protocol is used, same content type, content length, XML version, and again SOAP envelope and SOAP body. Again, then stock price response, that is in which price is given, that is 34.5. Okay, REST is again representational state transfer. REST basically means that each unique URL is representational of some object, and sports format like JSON, XML. URL is basically uniform resource locator for each object, for each class, for each website. There is different uniform resource locator. For example, web page is basically any search engine that you are opening. For example, if you are opening Facebook, that web page of Facebook is open. If you are working on Android and some application is open, if some you are using some search engine, same goes for the iPhone, then there is an REST API. Okay, API sent request to the database, and after the processing, database done some processing on your request, which type, what type of data you are asking for, and at the end it will generate a response that is sent back to the require specified user. Okay, how REST work? Using REST, you can get the content of that object using an HTTP, using some methods like get, post, put, delete, or post to modify the object. Again, get is basically task that display the task. Post basically create a new task. When you use the method get, then display a task by ID. When you use a method put, it will update a task by an ID. If you use a method delete, then it will delete a task by an ID. Say it's basically the same here. In the previous slide, the client was shown in the three ways, just like iPhone, Android, and the web page, laptop. Again, there is an API, and the API interact with the DB. DB means database, and again in the database there is the database data that is available. And again, as you have seen that it works on the structured data. So in database, there the data is available in the structured format, in the specific format. Okay, REST API with curl. Curl basically allow you to communicate and connect to many different type of server with many different type of protocol. As I have seen that APIs allow us to communicate with different services. So it will help us to communicate with by using different protocols. Curl basically currently support the HTTP hypertext transfer protocol, HTTPS. Basically, when we are more concerned about the security, then we will use this protocol. And FTP, file transfer protocol, for sharing the file, for transferring the file, we will use this protocol. Okay, this is basically HTTP post through curl. It's just some like the code that is but that it works like this. I'm just trying to show it to you. That's not like in detail. There is no concern about you. It doesn't have any concern about you in detail, but I just want to show it to you basically how curl works. Again, HTTP post through curl. Basically, it has functions available. Curl in it, it's basically initialize a curl session. Curl set OPT, basically it's set an option for a curl transfer protocol. See it basically a curl handler returned by the curl init function. Option basically curl option access option to add option to set URL customer request post field return transfer HTTP header and value to be set an option. Curl exec basically exec is used for execution that perform a curl session. Curl error return a string containing the last error for the current session. And as you have seen in the XML that for each opening tag there is a closing tag. Same goes for curl function here. As you have initialized the function, then you have to close it. So close the curl function by using this syntax. In the programming language, there is a specific syntax that you have to follow. So basically, this is the syntax. Again, REST curl simple request, basically URL, as I told you that URL stand for Uniform Resource Locator. Again, this is like this. Method is post and content type is application and you. Again, REST curl simple response is this. As you have seen that there is a request by using this request again. And then we have angle brackets and category. There are different key values. Here is a key, category is a key, and job is a value. Same goes for order by. Order by is a key, and ASC is a value. Again, some we have request by using the post method. So response will be generated like this. So status is 2000, and again, okay, groups different are available, name, created at, updated. Although this is basically not like this. I just wanted to show you that how it's basically thing actually look like. Again, SOAP versus REST. This is shown like this. All you have seen in the previous slides in detail that there is a protocol, HTTP protocol. Basically, REST, it's work like rides directly on HTTP. That's a protocol, plain and simple. In reality, this is all you need to send data from point A to point B. As I've told you in the start, that basically API works for the client to server, just like client server model. Client basically requests for a specific web page and the server will send back the response. So it send data from point A to point B and get the required response. Catch until something that represent a service contract is put into a place, it's kind anything goes. And whereas the soap is basically the coach is your soap envelope. It basically it wraps your data. Main strength is the presence of contract, the WSDL, which basically gives you the comfort of easily generating artifacts. Whereas a catch look at the complexity and added the weight. Basically, same goes again, SOAP versus REST. Consider Martin Lawrence as your data client. So client data plus SOAP standard again, but you get is your data sent to server would become huge as Big Mama that is sent to the server. So server will send back response. REST is like something the data as match. You have sent the query plus data soap standards and data is merged, it's integrated, and then the something like this is generated. So Martin Lawrence is basically was your data and SOAP standards were merged, integrated, and then that request is sent to the server, and the server again by using the REST will send a response. REST is like sending the data as much that is relevant to your request, that is relevant to the request of the client. Again, why using SOAP? The main advantage of SOAP web services are easy to consume, sometime rigid, time type checking, adheres to contract provider and consumer. Again, provider and consumer means client and server have to agree on the exchange format. As I've told you, that protocol is signed. Basically, protocol is a set of agreement that on which both parties have to be agreed. Development tools, there are different tools available. Can use almost any transport to send the request. You can use SMTP. This is basically a protocol for sending the mail, simple mail transfer protocol. You can use JMS, Java messaging services. There is basically another thing, asynchronous processing and invocation. Synchronous and asynchronous are both are opposite to each other. Asynchronous processing and invocation basically guaranteed level of reliability and security then ensure this type of operation. And the other thing that allows that force you can say that is helpful for using SOAP is basically stateful operations provide support to contextual information and conversational state management, that is security, transaction, and coordination. And why we use REST? Why using REST? The main advantage is some prefer REST, some prefer SOAP. As you have seen in the last slide, that for the platform we use REST, and for the communication and some type of telecommunication and for transferring we use SOAP. So the main advantages of REST web services are it's lightweight, the request and responses can be short, human readable result, flexible, simple, URIs, uniform resource identifiers. URI stands for uniform resource identifiers for identification. Easy to build, no toolkits required, totally stateless operation. Basically, stateless CRUD. CRUD is basically operate. There are 4 operations that user do for their website.
Sorry, sir.
Basically, CRUD contains 4 operations that are create, read, update and delete, that are basically available to each website at the back end. Okay. Again, caching situation information can be cached because of the totally stateless operation. Again, I have told you that uniform resource identifier, the component of URI, what from which URI is made of. Basically, it includes scheme name, identifies the protocol. As I've told you that if you have seen some by using your search engine, you can see on the top that there are your website link starts from this HTTP, HTTPS, FTP. It's basically according to the requirement that you're using. Hierarchical parts, hierarchy. You have seen that there is a hierarchy. If you I'll show that there is a proper hierarchy in your organization as well. For example, in the school there is hierarchies made. At the top level there is a principal, then we have the faculty, then we have student, and then we have admin, and then we have the students. So proper hierarchy is made. So in hierarchical part intended to hold information hierarchical in nature. Query basically what's actually we want. As I've told you the example of Facebook, in which we want to search about the specific group that are relevant to the cricket team. So I have sent the query, I have written the query, I have written my request in such a format that it will return it will return me the groups of that are actually contain information about the cricket. So in query contains additional identification information that is non-hierarchical in nature and often separated by question mark. Although a query can be represented, query can be sent in different formats. So in some format in which you can use the question mark. Fragment basically provides a direction to the secondary resources within the primary one identified by the authority and the part and separated from the rest by hash. Here is the example of URL. This is foo. Basically, it's a scheme. And again, in the URL, again, authority, it's basically completes example.com and colon 84 2. Basically, it completes a high authority. Then you have a path, and then you have a query, and then you have a fragment. Again, the rest versus source simplicity win again. So most people, you can see the difference who prefer in 20. It's basically data of 2006 and 2011. Blue color is just for REST API protocol. Then red is for SOAP, and green is for JavaScript, and purple is for XML RPC remote procedure call. And again, the light blue is for other different APIs that are available. So in the conclusion, basically SOAP request use post method and require a complex XML while REST doesn't. So read cannot be cached. On other hand, REST could do by a proxy server. REST allowed different data formats where SOAP only allows XML. REST better performance scalability. So continue operations, SOAP it stateless operation, REST is used. Here are the references that I have used for making this slide. Again, that's end from my side. Hope so that was quite informative for you as well. For me, it was. Have you any question? Anyone? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay.